the leading question before we dive into it a bit deeper, Taylor, is, is there a glass ceiling in racing? Because I think I know the answer to that, and my opinion on that is very clear. But how has it been from your perspective? Like, how is it being a female in a very male-dominated sector, which is motor racing and just the auto industry generally?
Yes, so this is actually something that not that I get asked a lot about this often, but I think about it often. And actually, the other day I was actually just thinking about this. It's like not that, as far as like the glass ceiling goes, like whether you believe that's there or not. Like one of the big things is because like it wasn't even too long ago, like 3-4 decades ago, that females weren't even, maybe not even that long ago, females weren't even allowed in the pits. So the fact that it's still a conversation, as like we still really haven't had like a real prominent female within motorsports. Yeah, we could say you had Danica or Sarah Fisher and Lynn St. James and Janet Guthrie, who kind of like got the ball rolling a little bit. We really haven't seen anything like super progressive as far as like even since Danica, really. I mean, you could maybe argue Haley Deegan. But I think the sense is like we're still almost in the early stages of this in theory. But I still feel like we have a long way to go. So as far as like female representation, like I will say as far as like an open wheel standpoint and what I race with USAC, I took like 3 years off from motorsports to focus on my education and like because of a lack of funding and so on and so forth. And it was surprising to me because when I was a teenager, I was the only girl in the field in a lot of midget sprint car Silver Crown races. And then when I stepped away for a little bit, and then when I came back racing, I was still the only girl within those divisions. And it was kind of like, why is there a lack of representation as far as like the very different genders go? And why am I still the only one? And so I don't know if it's like a perspective as far as like visibility. Like I know when I started racing USAC Silver Crown, I started testing a Silver Crown car when I was 15. And I didn't even really think like Silver Crown racing is like the upper echelon of USAC racing. Like, as you mentioned before, like Mario Andretti, who I know you've had on your show, on the Unzers, the Bettenhausens, like they all came from Silver Crown racing. But really before me, there were no visible females that raced Silver Crown. Like you maybe had like Aaron Crocker and Sandy Eden, like they maybe made like 1 or 2 starts, but before me, like there wasn't anybody. And so, like that brings me back to like, I still feel like we're in the early progression in the early stages of this, just because like I still really am the only one with like just being a sprint car race or being a Silver Crown race. And so, as far as a glass ceiling goes, I know that's kind of like a political topic. And so, but I think it just goes to show you kind of like the lack of representation. And then when we do have a female competing within the fields, there is a greater level of scrutiny against that individual. And so I think it's almost kind of like a turning of the tides, if you will. Like, I think we will eventually get there, but I think it's all just going to be in numbers. Like, it's a proportionality thing at the end of the day. And so I think females, obviously, I believe females can compete within motorsports. I know I can compete. I know I can win. Like, I've already proven it. But it's just kind of almost like I just need to get that Silver Crown win, which I know we're on the cusp. But like it's definitely an ongoing topic, and being open to learning from different perspectives, I think really at the end of the day, because when I like obviously motorsports, I work with a lot of males, like my entire team is males, like everyone basically at the track I race against, they're all males. And so, talking with some of the race directors or even one of the leaders of the series that I race in, he's like trying to learn a lot from me just to get a different perspective. Because it's like with certain series, they almost want to pit females against each other. Like if you have like 3 females in the field, literally, I've taken screenshots of this because one day I'm going to write a really great book about it. And sorry if I'm getting long-winded.
That's
but
fine.
They want to pit females against each other. Like they want to be like, who's going to be the first female to win this race in this series? Or I've seen a post recently to where it's like, the best finishes by a female in this race, and then they ranked all 3 girls in a row on like which girl finished the best. And it's like, we're not in our own little race mother to me. And I'm not trying to come across as like someone that's sensitive, because trust me, I am not. In order to make it in motorsports, you can't be sensitive. But I just think there has to be a learning mentality from all sides and people being willing to learn from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Taylor. And if you're sensitive, then I don't know what I must be because honestly, like I don't well, it's not that I don't understand, but just like you, I it frustrates me to know that we're in the 21st century, and even in this day and age, for women to be able to compete in the same platform as men, there's still like an obstacle to trade. There's still like a snotty attitude towards it. Still a very like a misogynistic approach to the way that women are perceived in motorsport, and it's completely wrong because at the end of the day, you guys are all drivers. You guys are there driving the cars and trying to compete to be the fastest. There shouldn't be a sub kind of division or kind of like a breakdown of the men or the women or the women or the age of the men. When everybody puts on their helmet and they go out to race, it's the fastest person on the circuit. And one thing that I think we get from Total Wolf is he always says that the stopwatch never lies. So it's the
Mm.
one factor which I think is what makes racing so cool, in the sense that no matter of your color, creed, gender, like it's just about who the fastest person is. But of course, to get into racing, there's obviously all these obstacles and trades and stuff like that, which you mentioned, which makes it harder. And then even when you're there, of course, there's even all these other factors which, prevent women from getting the kind of spotlight that they deserve, but also not in a patronizing or token gesture like way either, which kind of segues me onto another question in relation to this, Taylor, is, you know, what really needs to change, would you say? And also, what hope do you have when you see other things happening, like across the pond in the W series, for example, a spec series where you have like all females? Again, it was never quite clear what the winner of that series would go on to do. But even then, just like it's been running for a couple of years now, and now it got curtailed 2 races before the end of the season, and we don't even have a calendar for 2023. When you see stuff like that, what confidence does it give, people like us that are progressive and want to see more people in the space? And to the big wigs, the people that actually have money in their pockets, what can they do? And to the fans like me, which are quite not quite so affluent, but getting there, what can we do as fans as well to help, and to like make sure the message is at the forefront of all the media outlets and the people out there that can make the changes?
Yeah, so the big thing for me is because there is a handful of females within motorsports, but I feel like you always hear about the ones that have like the greater social media influence, but they may not be the better drivers and yada yada yada. Which the same can be said about males too. So that's kind of the double-edged sword. But I feel like because we're like still kind of in this movement of trying to get a female to the top tier of motorsports, whether that be IndyCar, Silver Crown, or IndyCar, F1, NASCAR, yeah, however you view the motorsports tiers. I feel like at the end of the day, it's just elevating and promoting the right females, quite honestly. Like you hear a lot of these programs that they want to direct funding to females in motorsports and then they'll select like a handful. And then I feel like me personally, like knowing up within like certain, like knowing about motorsports, knowing who's competitive and who's not, you kind of view like who they're selecting and it's like, but really are those the right ones that are going to achieve your objective? Like if you're trying to sell beer, imagine how much more beer you'd sell if you're going to select the right lineup of girls when people see that sticker on their car in victory lane. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like it's a matter of people in higher positions with that investment money that they're actually made aware of who's actually worth investing in. And to me, that what is going to make people achieve their objective of seeing successful female motorsports is by picking the most competitive one, like the one that's capable of winning. And that's not really, I feel like, what we're seeing right now. Now, as far as like the W series go, I understand like their objective of what they were trying to do was they were trying to do that to give like the deserving female or females within competition reach Formula One. But like obviously you saw like Jamie Chadwick killed it, right? Like she was great. And so now we're going to see what she's able to do racing for Andretti and Indy Lights. And so in that point, I feel like the W series kind of achieved in ways what they wanted to when you kind of hear some of the other gals within W series that are now going off and whether they're racing in Le Mans or doing some other type of circuit course stuff. And that way I feel like it achieved its purpose. I mean, people might want to argue like, oh, well, then it's females competing against females and their own little division. And I see that too. But I think it's really just all about like understanding like the different perspectives and the method to people's madness. But at the end of the day, like I feel like the people with the investment money like need to do more of their research on who they're allocating their money to, because if they're trying to sell their product, like I promise you, you will sell even more than the person with the most social media followers by picking the gal that's winning. So, and which is what I feel like Mobile One is doing. So like Mobile One came on board with me along with a younger gal that I'm mentoring, Katie Hettinger, who's coming up through the late model ranks, and then a few other girls that are actually winning. And to me, I think that's super important. And I think Mobile One is going to reap the rewards from that because they're actually getting inside scoop on what the real deals are. And so I think that's what's really important.